Choyo sampo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pelge drolor zambe zeparche pande lame shabla solwade Omo a guru vajradara suma timunishas Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajradar Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajradar Suma Timo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajradar Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishas Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishas Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishas Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishas Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishasani Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishasani Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munishas Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munisha Saneka Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Oma Guru Vajra Dara Sumati Munisha Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Chetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Seji Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dejen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malyopa Gemel Hungi Drubra Chingi Lo Tsoni Sodan Diktun Shape Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Labchen Tsoni Yonso Tsoba Dan Chera Nidun Changra Chingi Lo Chancho Pargi Ninsen Tuk New Peme Sudru Lekshune Janchu drube gegen kunshi shi tungen de la drubra chinge lop dage lona chela chokba dan chemin samjur ngemba shiwa da chedan tumbe deden malupa bemel hunge drubra chinge lo dorna tingne tsera tamche dan teche pardo nekavat rese kyamne lama keleme tukje chinge dala sikso so Gongyab drewe nyamda dachala jetsun lame tuje rabgongne Kudan sunge nawa dralme tu nyamsu nyongwe kesan toprasho Kewa kundu yanda lama dan drame chiki pela longche chi Sadan lamge yönden rabzone dorje change kopa nyur top Sho pakyuke kudan dagelu pakyuke sundan dagenga pakyuke tugdan dageyi tünyerme çıktı lo makyuke kudan dagelu makyuke sundan dagenga makyuke tugdan dageyi chingelo Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Sashipeke choshime to tamare rabalingashi nidegem padi sange shintu mikte ulwarki drokunu namda shingla chopar shoyidam guru radna mindrala kam niryata yami Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsuchi dage chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsuchi dage chushe gibe sonam ki Drola pinchra sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonamla jancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dage jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupar sho
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Una delle principali forze che
One of the main forces that pushes us to do anything is our own desire.
certe volte
And sometimes we can ask ourselves naturally, why is there such thing that I know that it's good for me, but anyway I don't do it? To me, it has already happened talking with someone. Do you like meditate? And the person says yes. What practice do you do? Look, I do the self-feeling, and when I do it in the morning, then I feel good for the whole day. So, do you do it every day? No, it has been actually 3 months since I've done it. So maybe, I don't know, the effect lasted for 3 months since the last time, but the reality is that that's not like that. So if we look at each one of us, are there some things that I know that are good for me, but somehow I don't do them? I think that we would all say yes. And there are many dynamics involved in this. There is one that is less predominant, but that sometimes is there anyway. There is a quite an unhealthy dynamic where we want to feel bad actually, because so that then we can feel that we are the victim and we can blame the other and we can be taken care of by the other. I don't know if it has ever happened to you to kind of be happy of feeling sick. This is kind of like a strange dynamic that can exist also. Sometimes when there is like a place where we identify ourselves in suffering, with suffering, and we really believe that because I feel sick somehow, then I have some right more than usual. When we put ourselves in some dynamics like this, what happens is that we perpetuate things that we know that are not good for us, and we don't take the medicine. But on the other hand, there is another fundamental aspect, that is the fact that we are made out of habits. And very often, when we repeat a certain dynamic, a certain conduct, both on the physical level, first of all, then also on the verbal and mental level, also by not doing us well, then we still get used to it. And then it's more difficult to get out of a habit rather than maintain an unhealthy habit. Because the fact of having to change the habit, to get out of a certain habit, to generate an opposite habit, it's difficult. As a basic principle, to change a habit requires effort. It's as if something has been bent on one side and that thing has been used to be on that side. To put it straight again and to bend it on the other side, it requires a strength that it's not indifferent. Even if it's much better looking on the other side, then to do that requires strength. And we have a basic principle that is quite strange, that is the law of minimum effort and maximum comfort. We believe that if we have to put as little effort as possible and to have as much comfort as possible, then we will be happy. And the process that is there, look, see, one doesn't even realize after a while. You see all badly and you don't realize. We get used to things. So what happens is that in this process, when we get used to something, even if we see that there are some negative effects, the fact of having to change habit requires energy, requires effort. And we don't want to put that effort, because also we don't have the habit of putting effort. The majority of us have grown up in a context where every time that there is like effort, there is someone that is trying to protect us from that fatigue, as if there was something bad in that. So as we go on, then constantly we try to do the same. So if I can do the same thing with less effort or with more effort, what do I choose? The one with less effort. And it's a matter of habit also, this. I remember once that I was in Brazil, and a person that I knew, a friend, he was carrying me with his car, and he told me that he was part for some years of the special army forces of the Brazilian army, and he was talking about the trainings, okay, where he had to kind of crawl around the Amazon forest, and we had to just survive with what we had. And I can tell you that we made such a big effort, and we went through such a deep fatigue with deep and so when now I finish my work and it's late and there are no more buses to go home, to walk for like 3 hours to go home, like really it's no problem at all, even if I have to walk under the rain. What do you think? That's no problem, you know? I was used to make the fatigue, the difficulties, and so it doesn't bother me. And so this is similar to those stories that I told many times, where I went to the abbot of the Tashilhunpo monastery in Tibet in the early morning, and he was living in a house, was more or less on the 4th floor, and by going up the old Tibetan stairs, even if the house was renewed recently, then the stairs are still the same, and they are almost like vertical, 90 degrees. There is even like a rope that you have to hold as you go up. It's not for a lack of space. This is the habit. They were built this way. And there was this guy in front of me with a container of water of at least 25 liters on the shoulders, with the rope on the front. And we were there for 4,000. Even if he was born there, we were like 4,000 meters, and so he was short with breath, you know, anyway, putting a lot of effort. And so as we got there up on the 4th floor with my logical mind, and I was like, why do you need to bring the water here? I realized, okay, there was no tap water. There was a container where you would pour the water. And look, I remember that in the garden, in there was like a point of water, and I was like, okay, at least in the house of the Abbot to bring like a tube of water, it's not such a big problem, I think. Then at the end of the teachings, then I asked my master, Kela, but why can we take a tube of water? It's not so complex, we can do it. And I thought, one of my friends that was there was also a disciple of his that was responsible of all the renewing of the buildings there. So I thought, okay, he can do it in one day. And then I asked him, Genla, but why can we bring the tube of water? And I was expecting like an explanation like, we can't, I don't know. And he said, if young men don't learn to put effort and constancy with the most simple things in life, such as water, how will they be able to put effort and constancy in things such as meditation and philosophy? And I was like, okay, I don't say anything more. Then I was talking with my friend, and he gave the technical explanation also that those are houses of the 13th century, and they are made out of stone and earth and dirt. And so, like, if also a tube breaks, then the whole house collapses. But then, anyway, recently they did this. Anyway, if we don't learn to put effort, the effort is something that doesn't come naturally. So at the basis there is this law of the minimum effort, maximum comfort. And one of the problems is that when we have a habit, to change the habit requires effort. Any habit. What is it that allows us to face effort? Faith. Actually, not even that, it's the desire. What allows me to face the fatigue, the effort, it's the aspiration, which is the positive aspect of the desire. Okay, I want that thing. When we really want something, do we measure the effort to obtain it or not? I would say not. The stronger is the passion, the stronger is the desire towards the thing, the less we care about the effort involved, whether it's economical or physical, emotional, mental, doesn't matter. When we really, really want something, then we give everything for that. Do we agree? Even we say you do like crazy things for love. Actually, you do crazy things for desire. I really want something badly, then I do everything possible to have it. Actually, this is quite a simple rule. I don't put energy in what I don't want. I don't want something in which I don't believe. To want something, I need to believe in that something. I need to believe in its possibility. I need to believe that it exists and that it's possible for me. I need to believe in its qualities and in its functions, in its potential qualities. For example, I have thirst, I have faith in water. I believe that water exists and that it's possible for me to drink it. I have faith that water can eliminate thirst and that it has the characteristic of being clean, fresh, and so on. And so I believe in the qualities of water and its potential and the function that it has for me. The stronger the faith that I have in water, the stronger also the desire that I have to have it, and then more easily I will put effort to have it. I remember when I was in India, in a place that was called, we would call it the mountain of Heruka, is one of the sacred places of Heruka, that was in front of the monastery of Sera where I was living. So where I was sitting to study, I had the view in front, and it was like 500 steps, something like that. Once we were halfway, and we were having a picnic there, like 200 people, and we ran out of water. We had a terrible thirst. It was like tremendously hot. So what did we have to do? To go down all the stairs and to get water. If you have a lot of thirst and you have faith in the fact that water can eliminate thirst, then you will make those steps. in this story, there is a part of this story that I haven't told that also shows another aspect. Even when I have faith that can solve the problem. So I knew that it was like a point with good fresh water, but I didn't want to take those 300 steps under, I don't know, 45 degrees and to come back up. I didn't really want to do that, so I wanted to avoid the effort. So I found a more immediate solution without reflecting on the negative sides of that. There was like a puddle and the water was quite dirty. What did I do? I took my clothes and I put on the water and I sucked the water. It was disgusting in a different way. This is not an example to follow at home. And that made me reflect on the fact that I would rather do something that puts me in danger than putting effort. And so we shouldn't simply have the desire towards what is virtuous, but also we should have, so to speak, the fear towards what is not virtuous, because there are some shortcuts, quick ways to obtain that pleasure and to get out of that momentary suffering that leave a lot of side effects. And if I don't recognize the negative aspects of that, then I will take the shortest path. I will look for the easiest way. But in my case, because I was living already there for many years, I had like antibodies as a dinosaur, so I don't think something really bad happened. The logic is quite simple. In order for me to create a habit and transform myself, I need to put energy. In order to put energy, there is effort. I don't put effort, energy in what I don't want. I don't want what I don't believe in. How can I believe in something? Then I need to know that thing. I need to get in touch with it. I need to get to know its features, characteristics, benefits. And the more I get in touch with that, the more gradually I can generate that faith. The word faith is described as believing in the existence, in the possibility, in the characteristics, and in the functions of something. I have faith in water is a clear example. An example that I've already given many times, but that also works well in this case, is like the first time that I had to buy a car. I had my own budget. I knew how much money I had at my disposal, and what I did was very simple. I just checked inside that limit of money that I had what were the kind of cars that I could afford. There were not like many models, but there were many possibilities, and that my priority was that it was like a comfortable car and spacious. Those were the needs that I had, and so I make my own research, and I was looking at all the possibilities in that period and so on. And then I went to the Netherlands, and getting out of the airport, there was a huge advertisement, and that it was saying it was an advertisement of a Rolls Royce, and it said, "If you ask the price, it's not the right car for you." And I said, okay, they're right, because in my wish list was Rolls Royce there. Even if I had money, I wouldn't put it there. But anyway, that's another thing. But then I reflected, there were many models of cars that if my budget were like twice or three times, I would have put them in there. Why didn't I put that car in there? Not because the car was not fast or secure or comfortable and so on, but because I didn't believe of the possibility of having it. So in that case, it was not the lack of faith in the car, but the lack of faith in my own capacity of obtaining it. Probably if the advertisement of Rolls-Royce was, it can be yours with comfortable installments of for I don't know, 5 years, then why not? So what happens is that in faith has two aspects, so that there can be desire, so that there can be effort. Faith needs to be faith in the characteristics of that thing and in my own capacity of obtaining it. So there is a faith in oneself and a faith in the object. With no faith, there is no desire. There is no aspiration. There is not that I want. With no desire, there is no effort the one places in it. So when we find ourselves not placing enough energy into something, it means that we don't have enough desire. So that means that we don't have enough faith. Why doesn't one meditate every day? Because yes, it's nice, it's good for me, but I lack faith for saying, okay, yes, this is what really is good for me. I believe profoundly in it. I wake up in the morning and I am like, I need to meditate. Why? Because one is lacking faith. Faith is something that can be built. Let's give one last example, then we move forward. Let's imagine a company. This company creates a product. Let's imagine that we invent like a beautiful product, but then no one knows about it, no one uses it, and so on, and then I need to sell it. What do I need to do? What is one of the first things that I need to do in order to sell that product? Where do I invest on? I make advertisements. What is the function of advertisement? To generate faith in my product. I need to make it so that people can get to know that product, see that it's beautiful, and can imagine themselves also with the product, and see that it can solve some things or bring some benefits. And if I can even make it go into the faith that it's a need, then after this the person develops desire, and out of that the person puts energy in that thing. But something like a person maybe never imagined to have need of something for generations. People lived without it very well. Then at a certain point it becomes like a basic need, and you're there like, the new model came out. What does it do more than what I have? I don't know. But the pictures, the advertisement is beautiful. They put it in a way that it's nice, attractive. Then eventually having the new model of that is not really because of what it actually does, but of like a social matter. And this is also a part of the functions of that object. Like, for example, an advertisement of a car. What does it talk about? Of the characteristics, the technical characteristics, the engine, and so on? Or does it show you that if you have that car, look how will other people see you, how beautiful you will be? It usually works on that. So what happens is that at the basis, we need to train ourselves in faith, in what is virtuous. That allows us to put energy in that. And usually, in the same way that there is advertisement in life, we have a lot of advertisement that grows out of our social context, from our parents, from our friends, from everything that I see, hear, the context where I've grown up. All of this slowly is giving me some input, telling me, look, that you need this, and that is the right thing for you, and so on. And out of this, we have our own desires. It's a bit like in Brazil, there is this way of saying that when a young kid is very young and she gets hurt, But we have this input that finding the right person, the wedding, and so on is a solution. So I have a lot of faith. I believe that the wedding is neither the cause of the problems, neither the solution. When one is feeling bad with oneself, is feeling bad in one context or the other. When one is feeling good with himself, he can adapt to many different contexts. It's like the fairy tales that we listen to when we were kids, and they live happily afterwards. I don't know if you've ever heard this sentence as a kid. This is pure advertisement. What happens? Faith, desire, and then energy in that. That's it. And so, getting back to the point where we left each other of the Lam Rim yesterday, today I also took this text. The point where we start from today is training in faith. I wanted first to go through what we just said to understand better what do we mean by faith. I took this text because there is a disciple of mine in Tibet that is called Lobsang, and the last time that I was in Tibet in October of last year, he gave me this text as a present. That is the text of the Lam Rim written by Lama Tsongkhapa, and he said I made it print on purpose in the monastery of Ganden, where Lama Tsongkhapa lived, still with the handmade matrices to print it, and he made 2 copies of this one. He gave it to Kapche Tricha Rinpoche, and I carried it to him. And then he asked me, will you give me the commitment that you will use this text when you teach Lam Rim? And I said, yes, well, fine. And so I brought this for the commitment that I had with him, and also for the blessings from where it comes from. It looks like a huge text, but actually letters are very big. Anyway, the point where we got to is the fact, how to rely correctly upon a spiritual guide. Why and the how. So guiding someone along the path is divided into 2 parts: how to rely correctly upon the spiritual guide, and once having relied correctly upon spiritual guide, how to follow the path. We find ourselves in the first part. Where we see that it's divided in 4 subjects. According to the book of Paponka Rinpoche, are 4, here are 6 different subjects. At the end is the same thing, divided in a different way. Lama Tsongkhapa divides it in understanding the necessary characteristics of the spiritual guide, understanding the characteristics of the disciple, the correct way of relying upon the spiritual guide, the benefits of relying correctly, and disadvantages of not relying correctly upon a spiritual guide. When we talk about the characteristics of a spiritual guide, there are 6 characteristics as a minimum that we need to look for when we are inside of the Mahayana Buddhist context. They are, you need to look for someone that has a good level of practice of morality, that is the capacity of directing one's own conduct. So to have a certain control over one's own mental, verbal, and physical conduct as a good, so that then has a good level of concentration, so the capacity of controlling the mind and maintaining it still, a good capacity of wisdom, so a coherent view of reality and a good discernment of things. It needs to be a person that has compassion, love and compassion, and that has a good knowledge of the correct view of reality. These are the characteristics. How many were they? 5? There is a 6th. So we have the 3 basic ones. There is the morality, concentration and wisdom, compassion, correct view of reality, there is another fundamental quality also that he needs to have, or she, more qualities than us. This is important. As a minimum, it needs to have something more than me in order to guide me. In general, they are described, 10 qualities are described. Someone that has the 3 superior trainings, so morality, concentration and wisdom. Someone that has a good knowledge of the teachings of Buddha, that is able to explain them to me in a way that I'm able to understand them, that has compassion and love towards me, and that in general is a person that has an inner state that is of love and compassion, and that has love and compassion towards me, that has a good knowledge of the correct view of reality, and that is able to explain it to me in a way that I'm able to understand it, that puts into practice what he or she teaches, a person that puts effort in practice, and there is not just a formality of like, okay, I have the profession of the spiritual guide and I just teach. No, it needs to be something that, first of all, is about oneself. So someone that puts into practice what one teaches. Then we have the characteristic that then needs to have love towards the disciple and at least have more qualities than the disciple. These are the main qualities that we are looking for. So it is said that along the path of our life to look for this, to find these qualities. It's not something that happens from one day to the other. We meet someone and we need to dedicate time. We need to be close to that person. We need to listen to. We need to experience. And usually this can last also for 12 years. It's not something that it's immediate. So it's not because someone has a title, a name, a position that one needs to have faith. Absolutely not. It's also a matter of connection that we have, but we need to look. One of the characteristics of which I talked about yesterday that for me is fundamental, and that is that I need to be careful to which I rely upon spiritually, is that for that person is more important to guide me rather than being the guide. When I find myself in front of someone that really cares about being the spiritual guide, then usually we have to be careful. In the sense that if I want to help you, because I nourish my ego by helping you, even if I help you, then at a certain point it creates problems. For a short-term relationship, it's fine. For a medium-long-term relationship, it doesn't work. And this is something that with time we have to experience, observe. I just need to check another point here. And these briefly are the characteristics that we are looking for. The part of the disciple, on the part of the disciple, the fundamental quality that needs to be there. I was looking for it here in the text.
qualità principale che come discepoli dobbiamo avere
The main quality that we need to have as a disciple is the sincerity in wanting to practice. If I look for a master, then at the basis I'm looking for someone that is guiding me, not someone that is saving me. I don't know if the difference is clear. I get there with the attitude that, okay, I want to follow this path, and I have on my side the commitment of walking. It's not that I go to him or her and tell him, no, carry me with your arms. No, help me walking. Then sometimes you can also carry me and cuddle me, and that's okay. But I need to walk. And this is a fundamental point on our side, because one of the fundamental characteristics is that help doesn't work if it's not asked. I think that we have all already experienced the fact of trying to help someone that doesn't want our help. So, as a disciple, I need to have as a basis the request of wanting to receive, the wish of wanting to walk. And this is what allows me to be able to be guided, to be able to be helped and sustained in this. And so this is one of the main characteristics that we need to find. Here I was trying to quickly look for it here in the text.
Comunque questo mi sembra che sia già abbastanza. Questo è proprio quello che dobbiamo stare attenti. Dobbiamo vedere qual è l'attitudine.
Anyway, I feel like this is already enough. This is what we should look for and be careful of. When I go to the doctor, the attitude I should have is not of wanting to the doctor to help me, but to guide me. To want to be guided by him in the process of healing, where I have to take drugs, follow the treatment, follow the diet, change the conduct, leave the things that bring the illness. That is the ideal thing. Many times, there is a doctor, female doctor, from which I follow the treatments for her, and she repeats always, remember that it's something that we do together. It's not only on the side of the doctor, it's something that we do together. And so it's a bit like that. Let's imagine that we are walking the mountains and we go to our wonderful alpine guide. Can you bring me? I want to climb that mountain. Yes, but what is there at the basis? The desire of walking. Because if I go to the guide and tell him, I want to go to the mountains, shall we walk? No, carry me with your arms. No, that doesn't work. When one has got hurt at the ankle or whatever, then you can carry that person, okay? But in general, we have to want to walk, and we should remember that also wanting to walk means to be able to be open to face difficulties that are there along the path. So also for this in Tibet, there was a way that was used to help to develop this part, but then here in our culture, I don't know how much it will work like this. You will go to a master and ask for a teaching. I want the third initiation. Or can you give me please the commentary of the Lam Rim, whatever. The master will say no. Okay. You had to ask again, but not tomorrow. There will be people that will like walk for 3 months, like from the east region of Tibet, to go meet the master. As for the teachings, the answer was no. You come back 1 year later. 1 year later, all the effort together, offerings. Again, can you give me the teachings? No. And then you come back after 1 year. Then the year after comes. Can you please give me these teachings? At the third request, yes, but when we will see. And at a certain point, it comes. Can you imagine what happens after like 5 years have passed since when you asked it and you really care about it, and finally you receive those teachings? Do we fall asleep we say, ah no, today I can't because like there is the football match, or I'm in a hurry, or we are totally present there. One of my masters in Tibet, I asked for a specific teachings and I had to wait for 4 years by asking every year. And when he finally gave it to me, it was a moment where I was totally present. You gave a totally different value to that, and it's not because like the master wants to act like the boss and no, I don't want to give it to you, but no, it's in order to help us on our side to generate that characteristic on our side to give value to what we are receiving and the desire to put it in practice. And so, like everything, when there is a lot available, then it's the main principle of economy. What determines the value of something? The demand and offer, availability. When there is something that is extremely available, then after a while we don't give so much value to it. One of the fundamental characteristics on our side as disciples is to give value to what we will receive. For this, there is also a part where we reflect, where we train our mind in faith. And there is a part where it's important for us to understand how much what we have is not so obvious to have it. It's not so available in any moment, in any place, in such an easy way. Because on our side, it's important to be able to give value. I think this is quite clear, isn't it? The way of relying correctly on the spiritual guide is divided into two parts: how to rely mentally and how to rely in the daily conduct.
Su questo prendo il testo di Paponka Rinpoche che leggevo questa mattina e andiamo a seguire un po' questa struttura qua. Come affidarsi correttamente alla guida?
How to rely correctly upon a spiritual guide, how to do it is divided in its turn between two parts. There are training in faith and training in feeling gratitude. So the two important feelings that we need to generate are faith and gratitude. Training in faith means to know, to understand. So what is the spiritual guide? What are the functions, the benefits? Also because starting from our culture, as I said yesterday, this is the part of the teachings that very often hasn't been explained in the West. Because there is the danger that on one hand we have the concept of guru has arrived in the West, according to me, in a wrong way. The word itself has a connotation that is like of someone to which you don't ask to walk together, you ask to be carried by his arms. And not only that, but also you put yourself at the complete disposal of that person, do whatever you want of me, and this is not the attitude. And so many masters, as they go to the West, and they arrived to the point of having to explain this, they didn't do it. They skipped this part to not create that thing that then it seems that I'm telling you that you need to treat me in a certain way. Something about self-elevation or something like to nourish one's own ego. That absolutely is not. So for me, when I chose to follow the teachings of Lam Rim, the attitude that I have is that, okay, we are here walking together. So what is the path that I'm following? I want to share it with you, and this is a fundamental part. In developing faith, it's really the fact of knowing that for us is even more difficult in general, because I don't know how many of you in your journey from since childhood have ever had the concept of spiritual guide as a role in your life. We have parents, we have teachers, friends. Spiritual guide It's quite difficult. Maybe yes. I hope yes, but for a majority of us, often it's not there. Maybe there is like the position, there is like someone, there is a point of reference from the spiritual side, but it's not someone that I'm relying upon uh, as a spiritual guide by all means. And one of the things that can happen is that, for example, when we get close to a spiritual guide, one of the natural things when we do it in the right way, even without having to understand conceptually and so on, one of the things that naturally happen is that is someone towards which we have naturally attraction. How many times where I went to my masters and I'm left like speechless. I also remember like with Lama where now there is like the restaurant. Now there used to be the Gompa before, and we were all together, and then a phone call comes from Trijja Rinpoche, the reincarnation of his master. And I remember Lama he becomes like a child, and he's all like this, and he takes the phone and goes down to talk, and he's like that thing of being like just melts away. Like 3 days ago, it happens that I received a phone call from Trijja Rinpoche, and kind of left like speechless, and you kind of look like stupid, you know. And there is a particular joy, something like the pleasure of being in his presence. And every time that I went and I had the opportunity of being with some of my masters, is this pleasure of being there, of being in the presence of that person, and attraction of something of pleasure. And one of the problems that we have is that in our culture, if I have attraction towards that person, what are the categories? Either is a friend, or is a person of the family, or is someone that is not the person of the family or a friend, but where I have an attraction for an intimate relationship. Is there any other category? Not really. And so the tendency that we have, without having to reason about it, is that when we have attraction towards a spiritual guide, then we try to put it in one of these categories. But the reality is that it doesn't fall in any of these categories. So we also have to learn. So when we say we have to train ourselves in faith, we also have to get to know what is the role of the spiritual guide. It's a role that becomes part of my life, something that was not there before. And I repeat, when we rely correctly and we have this feeling, this joy, there is something that one feels from the inside. And I remember once my grandparents scolded my father because in the wallet he had the picture of Lama Rinpoche and not of his sons. But how you give more value? No, they are different things. And there is like something that has to do with pleasure, attraction, but we have to bit by bit get to know what is this role, what is the way of relating. It's something that we have to learn, because like in any relationship, there is a double side that is like what are my rights and my duties. In any relationship, I give and I receive. Maybe I don't know who was present of you when Lumpo Tata was here. Someone, yes, but few. Lumpo Tata, this master of Thailand. I keep asking him to come back, but sooner or later I hope that he will be able. He is already very advanced with age and a responsibility of like at least 1 million people below him. He's responsible of that monastery in Thailand, of which I talked about yesterday, Dhammakaya. And he came here once. It was the only place outside of his organization where he gave teachings. And he gave teachings on the Singalavada Sutra, which is a sutra of Buddha, also called the Sutra of the Six Directions. And it talks about that at the center there is the person, there is us, and then there are 6 types of relationships that are in our life, And for every kind of relationship, there is, okay, what are my duties? What do I have to give and what can I expect back? And he said that it's important in life to have balance in these relationships. There are the relationships with parents, with children, with friends, with teachers, with the spiritual guide, and work relationships. These are the various kind of relationships. For any kind of relationship, there is the part of what I have to give and what I can expect back. And it's something important, this, in any relationship. When we have clarity of what is that function, what is my role, my job, so to speak, what can I expect out of the other, the more clarity there is on this, the more stable is the relationship. A relationship starts to degenerate when one of the two starts to feel that is giving more or receiving less. Is this clear? So also here, other than training on the faith in the guru, we should train the faith towards the husband, the wife, the children, the teachers, and everything. Because I don't know how much we actually have clarity towards any kind of all these kinds of relationships, and what can I expect, what should I give, how does it work, what are the functions, the characteristics, and so on. If someone comes to you and says, "Alu, you're the love of my life, I can't live without you," okay, but I can. Because since when one projects on you the happiness of his or her life, that's not something that you can give. So then sooner or later it becomes a problem. And so it's important for us to understand that training in faith is not training in a blind faith because we need to believe and that's it. We need to know, we need to understand what it is, understand the functions, the characteristics, and inside of this to bit by bit be able to say, okay, yes, I need it or not need it, I want it or not, and out of this is born desire. So in order to do that, we start by training in faith and then in gratitude. The first training in faith, let's see.
Ok, il primo punto è perché allenarsi nella fede? Per quale ragione?
First point is why should we train in faith? For what reason?
Noi abbiamo ogni tanto un'attitudine molto presente nella nostra vita.
We sometimes have an attitude that is very present in life. There is a sort of pride somewhere of being self-taught. Make a personal example. To me, I don't like to read manuals, user guides. But I had my own pride, like, cut through after the third time that I tried to build some furniture from IKEA that looked like something very simple. That, yeah, I mean, I don't need that manual for this. There was a piece that needed to be placed in a certain way, and I understood it at the end, so I had to unmount it to then start over. And what happens is that often we have this thing, yes, I know, I don't need the other. I can do it. That on one hand is very fine to have this faith that I can do it, but on the other hand there is nothing wrong in having someone next to you that helps you in along this path. The two things go together, not contradictory. The fact that I'm looking at the manual doesn't mean that it decreases my capacity. The fact that there is someone close to me that guides me, gives me direction, that doesn't mean that I have less capacity. That means that I have the trust, the capacity that I can follow that path, but also there is someone with more experience than me and I can follow that. So the first benefit in training ourselves in faith, and why should we have faith, is because since the moment that I know what is a spiritual guide and why it's important to rely correctly upon it, then naturally I want to do it and I feel the benefit of it. So here we should take a step that in traditional text that is not there, because the concept of spiritual guide is something that in the Tibetan culture it has been present since centuries. So when Papunka Rinpoche or Lama Tsongkhapa talked about the guru, there is no need to explain so much about it. It's difficult to be able to describe the virtuous friend, the spiritual guide, the guru. We can call it in many different ways, in a few words, because there are many characteristics that make it. I will try to put in words. I say I try because I already know that I won't be able to fully do it. The first characteristic that is fundamental for me from our spiritual guide and our gurus, that I repeat, doesn't have to be one person. There is the role spiritual guide that can be covered by more than one person, and also when one person we don't see that person again, or even physically it's not there, that continues to be a spiritual guide. It's not that it's lacking, because that role continues from what we have received, from the example that is in our lives. It continues to sustain that function. And so this is something important. When we talk about the guru, the spiritual guide, is a role that is in our life, a relationship that we create that can be covered by more people. In this sense, we are not monogamous. It's possible to have like one-to-many relationship. I say this because sometimes one comes to me and, Lama, but can I take refuge with this or that? Absolutely, yes. Lama Tsongkhapa had more than 100 masters. The first was Karmapa. Lama Tsongkhapa was 1 year and a half. Karmapa went to the parents of Lama Tsongkhapa and he said, look, your child is a very special kid. I would like to be able to educate him. And the parents accepted, and they gave the child to Karmapa, and he started to educate him, and it is said that Lama Tsongkhapa gave his first teachings when he was 3 years old. And the first time that I heard about this, I was like, okay, this is like a Tibetan thing. Like sometimes they exaggerate. But then I was reading a book on prime numbers, and there was a story of a mathematician that, as he was 3 years old, he was correcting the bills of his parents' shop. And so I was like, why not? Then if one does that, then that means there is a huge predisposition. And it is said that Lama Tsongkhapa, as he was 3 years old, he was talking about the importance of abandoning the 8 worldly dharmas. He had inside of him already this fundamental aspect that one has to free himself by that illusion of happiness that is in recognition, power, and sensual pleasures, and so on. What happens is that the guru is someone one of the main functions of the guru, I repeat, it can be more than one person. And only one thing more to add on this: when we are really at the beginning of the path, that we don't really know how to rely upon correctly a spiritual guide, the fewer people cover that role, the better it is, because otherwise we have the tendency of putting them in conflict between them. This one explain it in this way, the other in that way, and so this one is wrong, because we have the tendency of relying upon the person. Then we put them in conflict between them. The more we have experience in the Dharma, the more we go deeper in it, the more we are able to take refuge in the Dharma, the more spiritual guides we have, the better it is. But then we need to choose properly. It's not that the more there are, the better it is. So for me, one of the fundamental aspects of the spiritual guide is the fact of having someone in my life that believes in me. To have someone that has faith in me and in my own capacity, allowing myself to have faith in myself. This is one of the fundamental characteristics for me, and already by itself is really a lot. The spiritual guide is someone that loves me in a way, how can I say, that is with no judgment, unconditional, allowing myself to love myself with no fear of being what I am, where there is an idealized image of what I could be, and it would be better if I was like that, without the imposition of already having to be that. We are used to a type of love where it comes together with an idealized image of what we should be. How many times we have heard from someone that loves us, that should love us, you shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't do that, and these kind of things. The difference here is that if we have the right spiritual guide, is a love where it comes together with an idealized image of what we can become, and it will be good if we will be, but so it's someone that has faith in a better version of ourselves, but it doesn't have the pretense and it doesn't impose that we should already be that. This brings us to that place where I generate an image of what I would like to become, but I don't put myself, the weight on myself of already having to be that, but yes, to walk on that direction, A spiritual guide, the guru, is someone that is an example of life. Someone that during my life where I find myself in the moments of difficulties, of not knowing what direction to take, that it can be, or she, like as a point of reference, not only with what is taught, but also with the example of life. This is another important aspect. Because there are two different functions that the spiritual guide can cover. There is a function that is the one of the teacher, and the other one that is the function of the spiritual guide. They are two different roles. The role of the teacher is to give knowledge, to transmit knowledge. I can have a teacher that transmits and explains some things beautifully, and then himself or herself doesn't put them in practice, but he can explain them very well. So but another thing is to be the spiritual guide. At this point, one of the most important functions is to be the example, to be there to guide. Someone that when I look at and I think how beautiful it would be if I could be like that, and when I find myself in a situation, how he or she will do in this situation. And so the role of a spiritual guide, among other aspects, is the role of being a point of reference, of being like an example for us, something that gives us faith in ourselves and helps us to love ourselves in an unconditional way. And these are part of this function, and it's already a lot by itself. And other than this, the spiritual guide has the role, the task, the job of teaching and of being a positive influence. In other words, can be said to give us the blessings. Someone, it is given the example in the Lam Rim text, it's like when wood is put together with incense for a long time, and then you take that wood, it has the scent of the incense. It's not incense yet, but it takes that scent. And similarly, someone that when you're with that person, you don't become the same, but you take something, you're influenced positively. someone whose presence can influence us positively. And so this is to start to give us an idea of a photography of what is the guru, what do I expect. If there is someone that can teach me well, but I'm not able to see, because there is also the way what I'm able to see and to relate with. So I'm not able to see like a coherence between what he teaches and how he lives. That's not a person on which I can rely upon spiritually. If I don't feel loved, if I don't feel respected, seen, and so on, that's something that before really relying, then I need to work on it. Maybe there isn't really that feeling, or maybe I have my own blockage. That's something that needs to be seen in this process. But to rely really upon a spiritual guide, this is another fundamental aspect. So let's imagine for a bit the beauty, the importance of having this role in our lives, without having to fixate with one person or the other, to think about who do we put to cover that role. It's a bit like when we grow up with the idea of the importance of having a partner. Then one says, I don't have it now, but I would like it to have it, because one has already an idea of what one expects out of that role, out of that function, that presence in one's life. So the first passage here is to allow ourselves for a moment to imagine what would it mean to have someone in our lives that can cover those functions. Someone that can love us in an unconditional way. Someone that can have faith in our capacity, in our capacity of spiritual growth. Someone that has a dream in us without imposing that we should already be that. Someone that is a virtuous example for us, and someone that when we are in his presence or her presence, we feel a positive effect, and helps us also to see our own shadows, because like to do us well, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is always easy and fine and light. Someone that can help us to see also the difficult parts. Someone that helps us to create a safe environment where our shadows can also be welcomed and faced. Someone that can be an example of life, a point of reference for us in the conduct of way of living, and someone that also helps us gradually to change our vision of the world for a more coherent and sane vision. Someone that gives us the indication of a way of living that is more balanced, more sane, and so on. And so that not only it shows us, but also accompanies us along this path. The first question is, do we want this or not? If we want it, then we need to look for it. We need to give this value, we need to give this importance. For this, according to me, when we talk about training in the faith towards the guru, the tendency that we often have is to directly think about that person. No. Before getting that, there is a consequence. Before, we need to have faith towards the guru as a role, as a presence in life, as a fundamental function for us. And then it can be covered by one or more people. It's easier than the wedding in this sense, because it's not that I have to look for one, like we can find more. So let's imagine that you want the role, and then okay, you can have like a person to cover more the family part, more like the part. I mean, for example, I have a lot of masters, some are guiding me. The majority of them, unfortunately, is not there anymore, but like some of them transmitted more like the philosophical part, more like the part of meditation. There is who has taken care of me in any possible aspect, like Lama Rinpoche, so any different aspect, and it's as if one covers a different part of that unique role. So it is also said that when we have more masters, they should all be seen as manifestations of the same thing. They're all the guru, where one covers a different part of that role. and it needs to be seen in the same way, so they're all manifestations of the same. It's a bit like if I want to go for a long journey, then I need to be guided along that journey. So there is the role of the guide of the journey. There is a person that covers that role in doing the visas. That person will teach me how to walk in the mountains. That other person will drive me with the car. Everyone has a different role, covering a different part of the role of the guide. There doesn't have to be one person doing everything from the beginning to the end. So yesterday we have quickly seen what are the benefits of having a spiritual guide. There is the benefit of having a sane example in our lives, and consequently to have a direction where we can gradually walk to, because we in our lives are constantly are in a process of transformation. And one of the things that we need the most is positive influences, because those help us to follow a sane direction. And this is one of the most important benefits that we have of having a spiritual guide that also guides us also when we are not together physically. That example is there, the direction is there, someone that is always present with us. One of the benefits, for example, that is there is this. Let's imagine a person. Try to imagine for a moment someone with which you have a relationship with a strong feeling, whether it's of aversion, attraction, gratitude, can be positive or negative. Can we think about someone? Now let's imagine that person. Let's imagine that person in front of us and to talk with that person, to be in the presence of that person. The more we imagine and the more we are mentally in the presence of that person, that feeling that we have towards him or her, that feeling that we have, does it manifest or not? One of the most important qualities for us that we need to develop in our lives is faith, love, and are also the qualities. These are also the qualities that in a moment of death are fundamental. One of the things that are important in the process of dying is to die with an inner state of peace, a virtuous state based on love, gratitude. So if at the moment of death, or really as I'm dying, I remember of that person with which I have a relationship of love, of trust, of gratitude, and so on, what feeling will I generate? Love, gratitude, and trust. And this is one of the ways, for example, it is said that when one relies correctly upon the spiritual guide, this also protects us to have a bad death. That's not about the external aspect of death, it's about the inner aspect. And when one dies well, one, as a consequence, is reborn well at the 99% of the possibilities. And so it's fundamental to die well in order to have a good continuity. And one of the ways is when I have the guru in my life, and he's an entity, is like more persons, and when I connect with one, I connect with all of them, and when I connect with that brings me that feeling of faith, that feeling of being loved, of everything, and in the moment of death, then I'm able to familiarize with that, and I take refuge and I connect with that, because during life I have connected with it, familiarized with it. What that generates inside of me, that already protects me from not having a good death. And so this is one of the other benefits also that are also there. There is a characteristic that is important here when we talk about training in faith. I was looking before to have a reference of time, because the clock, I don't see it. There is an important part here. That is, when we talk about training in faith, there is a function that is given to the guru. That is the function that sometimes is understood in a wrong way. That is, it is said that Buddha Shakyamuni, when at the end of his life, in some moments, someone has asked him, but how we will how will we do it when you will not be here? Who will guide us? And Buddha didn't want to leave some book. It's not that Buddha was not able to write. And even if that was the case, he could find a lot of people able to write at the time. And even if not many, someone he would have been able to find. Among the disciples of Buddha, there were many kings and so on. But Buddha didn't want to leave anything written. And what Buddha said is, I will be present in the future and I will guide those that will come after me through those that will give my teachings and that will represent me. And there is a fundamental aspect in this path, that is the human connection. That is represented the fact that I'm not able to transmit what I don't own, what I have not received. So it is really used the analogy of a vase filled with nectar. The nectar is the Dharma. Nectar is this process of inner growth. The words of the teachings are what represent the Dharma. Dharma is beyond words. We can see there the example of the image of Kyabcha Rinpoche at my left, the bigger image. That was the root guru of Lama Ganchen. You can see that there are two flowers blossoming on the sides. On one of them there is a dorje and a bell, and on the other one a vase. Dorje and bell represent that he owns the balance of the male and female energy, method and wisdom, so that he has love and compassion and the correct view of reality. The vase represents the essence. It is called the nectar of immortality. The nectar of immortality is not like the sacred graal. You're looking for something, you drink that nectar, you will not die. It's not about that. One of the problems is that sometimes we take things that are written in a way as metaphors and we take them literally. The nectar of immortality is the Dharma itself, that is represented in a vase because is what is received, has been received by his masters, and he kept it in custody and he transmitted it to his disciples. So the process of transmission is really represented in this phase, in this fact of receiving and pouring again the nectar that one has received. It is called the nectar of immortality because when one gets out of the cycle of suffering, of samsara, then death is not an obstacle anymore. And to die and to be reborn is more similar to falling asleep and waking up. There is no more the loss of consciousness between one state and the other. For this is called immortality. It's not because we remain in this body forever. What happens is that this nectar is really represented as a thing that one receives, keeps it in custody, puts it in practice, and the more you use it, actually, the more rich it becomes, the more you have to give to the others. It's not like something you receive and then if you use it, you consume it, and then it finishes, it ends. Then you receive it, you keep it in custody, and so that then you can transfer it again to the others. And really, because the process of spiritual growth is a process of development of inner qualities that are not conceptual. The process of guiding us in this can be something fixed and rigid, because according to the person and according to the timing, the ways to explain the same things and to get to the same results are different. They change. So Buddha wanted to make it so, wanted to give priority to the human relationship that is there between generation and generation. And so there is this way of saying, I will be present through those that will transmit what they have received from me from one generation to the other. The first part of the Lam Rim that gets here when it is said to train in faith. To train in faith of seeing the Guru as the Buddha. And when we talk about training in the faith of seeing the Guru as the Buddha, here there is a basic mistake. That is, one of the things that one often does is to go and check, okay, what are the characteristics of a Buddha? Now let's see if he has them. Let's check. Look, no, he doesn't have them, so it's not about that. The point is not finding the perfect person and to make sure that he is a Buddha. Also because from the moment that if we would be in front of a Buddha, we wouldn't be able to recognize him. There is a concept, the basic fundamental concept that is the Lam Rim comes after, but it's that I'm not able to see what I'm not able to see what I cannot see. In my own imperfection, I see the word through myself and I project my own things on the word. So, for as much as I find myself in front of a being that is loving me in an unconditional way, but at the basis I have the feeling of not being loved and so on, I would also project that on that being. That is, I will project all my stupid things. That is normal. So we really don't know who we have in front, and it is said that a Buddha, a being can see a Buddha when he is already a Buddha himself or herself. In other words, Buddhas can only recognize themselves between themselves, in the sense that I'm not able to see what do I have in front and to understand that fully. For as much as I can have the most perfect and beautiful being in the world, I'm not able to see that perfection. So it's pointless to get into the process of pointing the finger and looking, but is he really a Buddha or not? What happens here is the following. What is the function of a Buddha? To help the beings. A being that has got out of the cycle of suffering, has reached his qualities to his maximum potential, called a Buddha, has placed as a goal to help the beings. His goal is to help the beings, and there are 4 ways of doing it. First of all, the 4 ways require adapting to the others. And they are adapting to the needs of the others, starting from the material need. Because when one is hungry, then one needs to eat. The first level is material help. The second level is by giving affection and love. We need to be loved. The third level is by giving protection. We need to live in a context where we don't live in fear. And the fourth level is to give the spiritual guidance. That is, we need to find a meaning in our lives beyond suffering, beyond survival itself. And here is about the Dharma. So when we study how does a Buddha help the beings, when we say, okay, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, when one has reached Buddhahood, what should one do? Help the beings. In what way one can help the beings? It's not that Buddha has the capacity of like making some magic and everyone gets out of suffering. The only way that one can help the other is by interacting. We don't have any other way. The only way that a being can help the other is by interacting. And Buddhas is described that they have these 4 modes of helping the beings, with material help, with emotional help, giving love, giving protection, and giving Dharma, the spiritual path. When we look towards ourselves and we had to place ourselves in a category, okay, am I a Buddha or a sentient being? you know it for yourself. You, me, I have it already quite clear for myself. I'm on the second category. So, because I am a sentient being, I am part of the category um, that that are served by the Buddha, because the Buddhas, the enlightened beings, are on service for the sentient beings. So what happens is that all the Buddhas are trying to help me. It depends on my side if I have the conditions, the causes, to be able to receive that help or not. If all the Buddhas come and want to help me, what are the tools that the Buddhas have to help me? Help me materially, with affection, love, with protection, and with spiritual guidance. It is said that sometimes Buddhas can manifest themselves in the form of a bridge, in the form of an animal, in billions of different forms. We really don't know who or what we have in front. There are many stories collected in the centuries, but the point is that at the end there are some beings that help us in different way, materially, by giving love and protection, by helping me to feel safe, and that also guide me spiritually. When a person is doing these four activities towards me, that person is a Buddha. Is doing the activity of a Buddha towards me. Because it's not like that Buddhas, the enlightened beings, can help me in a way that is far away, mystical, that I don't see. Because if the Buddha manifests in front of me with this subtle light body, what do I see? Nothing. I don't know, it's like radio waves. Do I see them? No. So it is also said that the act of greatest compassion from an enlightened being is to adapt to the capacity of the others that that being wants to help. So if a Buddha wants to help us, how should that be manifested? With a body of flesh and bones or with a body of light? Flesh and bones, on a level with which I can relate. And that is also not enough to be in flesh and bones. It needs to be on a level with which I can interact. So when there are some beings that guide me spiritually, that give me love, help me in my life, and that are actually doing this activity other than getting into the aside from the thing of getting into, okay, are they Buddha or not, they are doing the activity of a Buddha. And if an enlightened being exists, then the way of helping me cannot be other than this. And out of this, there is also the fact of training oneself in the faith of seeing the Guru as a Buddha. And from the moment that the Buddhas, the enlightened beings, want to help me, then in what way will he manifest? In many, many different ways. And the way to help me the most is to be like a saint example and to guide me in the process of spiritual growth, in the function of a guru. And this is what we call training in faith here. Other than understanding that the role of the guru is an example for us, so someone that loves us in an unconditional way, that allows us to have faith in ourselves. Other than this, is a tool, the mean through which enlightened beings manifest themselves. We often have, more than very often, sometimes we have this need of magical things. If something comes and start to levitate, or that person is generating some fire, strange things, then we say, look, that great master, and so on. But what I need actually is someone that loves me, someone that helps me to have faith in myself, someone that guides me correctly. For the fire, we have other tools. It's like when someone went to Lama and asked him to teach him how to levitate. We were in the United States, was also quite a big man, quite robust man. And this man comes to Lama Ganchen and he says, look, I've heard that there are ways of meditating through which it's possible to levitate, and I would like to learn them. Yes, it's possible, said Lama Ganchen, but he said, look, since the moment that you learn them, after many years with a lot of effort, maybe you can levitate like 1 meter or 2 meters. There are like lifts now, there are planes. Use your time to develop compassion, love, awareness, wisdom. That is what you actually need. That is not that. And for me, out of all the people that I've met until today, I've met, for example, people that have the capacity of managing some particular energies. People that can touch you, you can really feel something that really is not indifferent. People that have the capacity of generating heat in the hands, that it seems like they've put some lighter there. People that have clairvoyance, people that can foresee part of the future. Look, that is going to happen. That other thing is going to happen. I've seen people of every kind, but for me, what has always impressed me and what I always find beneficial are those few people that I've met from which I've really felt an unconditional love. Those few people from which I had the possibility of being in their presence and seeing that I had a coherent view of the reality, and they were able to transmit it. Because these characteristics that we have talked about before, that they are called the worldly realizations, so the capacity of directing energy, clairvoyance, and so on. The clairvoyance of being able to listen to the thoughts of the others and so on, they are dangerous because very often one having these characteristics that are not common, then at the end one ends up nourishing one's own ego and living out of this, and then it becomes at the same time one's own condemnation. And what we actually need the most is who helps us really along our path of growth. And a Buddha coming to me, in what way could it manifest? I'm not able to see a better way other than that of my masters, of the gurus, to help me in this life. That doesn't mean that there are no other ways. An enlightened being can manifest itself in the aspect of any person. For example, I have had that experience of which I tell of sometimes, of that person that was selling coconut. I was at the beach by the sea, and I really wanted to go in a beach that was far away to a beach, like 40 minutes by car. Then I get to that place, like making a long story short, I get to that beach. It was nothing special actually. I remember getting there, I was like, why did I get here? But before getting there, you had to walk for like 40 minutes. It was really nothing. There was like, then there was just nothing. It was just like a little stand selling coconut. It looked like kind of magic. Like, where did that man come from? Usually one sells things where there are people there, but there was no one there. So I go to this man and I have a conversation that was very, very simple. It was like, I would like some coconut. How much is it? It's this much. Thank you. Can you give me one? Yes. And as I was saying this, I was profoundly impressed by his presence. It was as if it was like a magnet. I didn't want to go away. And so I asked a question more, like, what's your name? Because I really didn't know what to say. I was a bit embarrassed. And my name is Michel. I was on the other side of the world, okay? Like close to Africa, where you talk English also. And he says, Michel, okay. It was a black man, around 50 years old, and I was there impressed. And I'm not able to also get emotional when I remember that man, in those few moments where I was in his presence, taught me an aspect that is fundamental, that is the union of humility with dignity. This characteristic of being well with what we are without putting ourselves neither on superiority nor below the others, where one is has dignity in oneself and recognizes the quality of oneself, is able to be good with oneself without having to compare with the other. Don't ask me the why and the how, but that's what he taught me, and I have a profound gratitude. So I can give many explanations. We live in a very rational world, and where we would say, I know that person maybe lived in that island or was this and that, but at the end, through that man, I received a part of my path that was fundamental. It was part of the role of the guru. He absolutely, if we use like the ancient texts, like the way of telling this, we would have been, and then the Lama got there, and then the intuition, because the guru sent him a message, a subtle message that brought him to that place without knowing why, and when he got there, there was Guru Buddha that manifested in the form of the coconut seller, because I had in my mind that I had to drink coconut water. Before that, I really put in my head that I wanted to drink coconut water. I went in a place where it was like a coconut was like 25 euros. Like, no, I won't do it. And then I got there, it was cheap, so that already created an attraction. You could put it like in the story, look, Buddha used his desire and manifested in the aspect of a coconut seller in order to give him this teaching. This kind of mystical way to explain, one at the end, one asks himself, why? Our tendency of wanting to make things more trivial, to want to bring things very much to the ground, sometimes is hurting us. On the other hand, we have to be careful of not going in the other extreme, of seeing everything in a mystical way, which is also something that can bring some negative effects. But the point is that if a Buddha wants to help us, the way that he can do that is by interacting with me. And who are those that interacted with me, that really helped me and guided me? If these are not the ways how a Buddha manifests, then what other ways? I don't know. That's why we start from this first point, that is training our faith. And here Pabonka Rinpoche says that among all the types of awarenesses is the most difficult one to have, because our tendency is judgment, is to see the other and point the finger. And so the role of the guru is that of guiding us correctly. And this brings us to a fundamental aspect. When I relate with someone, inevitably I interact with that person, and I'm able to relate with one aspect or another aspect. When we relate with the qualities of someone, that is what we interact with. When we relate with the negative aspects of someone, that is what we interact with, and as a consequence we transform in one way or the other. Seeing the Guru as a Buddha allows us to relate with the qualities, and as a consequence, who receives the benefit is ourselves. And here there is an attitude that I've seen in many cases. In a culture where this aspect of seeing the positive aspects of the Guru, relating in this way, has the tendency of placing spiritual guides. So I say, like, the Guru, okay, I repeat, the Guru is not one person, is this function, is this presence. Is like to say, like, okay, the Father, okay, the Father is difficult, but like the friend, more people can cover the role of the friend. So when I have the Guru, the ideal thing is that the Guru is on a superior level to mine, and I try to go towards his level. our tendency often is to say, I bring the Guru to my level. What does it mean? I judge his or her actions through my way of being. If I had done that, then it would have been for that reason. You also did it like that. I don't know if this is clear. And this is something where we have to be careful. This is one of the points of danger in general. We have the tendency of relating with all the others by using a point of reference ourselves. And so if the other does that, is because he's thinking that other thing. If the other is like that, is because he wants that thing, because I am like that. We do this in general with everyone, and our tendency is also to do it with the Guru. When one gets into this process of training in the faith towards the Guru, seeing the Guru as a Buddha, there is a very wrong attitude that I have sometimes seen, that I try to describe it in a way that is a bit more figurative. One puts the Guru on a kind of a throne to say, okay, you're everything, you're beautiful, I idealize you. Then once I put you on the pedestal, then you're in front of me, I took take the shotgun and I try to find the places to shoot at. That is, first of all, I put you higher than everyone, then I look for the defects. You're not worthy of what I've given you, you betrayed me, I believed that you were this, and then you were not what I believed. I don't know if this is clear. The point here is that I relate with the qualities and that I connect with that aspect. This is an aspect of this role. Because towards anyone that we look at, I've never met anyone towards which when I look, I don't find any defects. There was once that for me was a very important lesson, when one of my masters, as I was in India and I was quite young, I was like 15 years old, one of my masters asked me something to which I was completely opposed, like nothing particularly serious. It was something that according to me was not correct. It was about, better to say it because otherwise who knows what one imagines. I had my teacher of Tibetan language, like a short man, was very, very kind, and he was also one of those that was responsible for exams. When there were the final exams of the studies, there was also the part of Tibetan grammar, and he was part of the committees that were creating the questions. What happens is that one of my friends, disciple of that master, it was in the year that he had to give these exams. It was like 1 month of exams, and you need to revisit like 20 years of studies, and the exams are very difficult. And he was nominated like as an administrator of the monastery in the time that he had to give the exam. It was a very difficult situation. He had little time to study, and so if you don't cover that role, then you're expelled from the monastery because everyone has chosen that role for you. So he was finding himself in a very difficult situation, and my master, which was also his master, was trying to help him and was trying to give him the direction of what to study. And he asked me, can you go to your teacher and I wouldn't say to ask for the questions themselves, but at least to ask for the direction to study. And this was his request, and I felt like as if I had to do something that I would have never done. But on the other hand, there was my master that was asking me something, and I felt totally in the middle between two things. There was a period, a strange period of my life, because for 1 month, every day, I had in my mind to write a poem. I never done it before that, neither after that. It lasted exactly 1 month. Astrologically, it would be interesting to understand what had happened. I was never for poetry, it's not in my being, nothing against it. And every day I was writing a poem. And that day I wrote a very sad poem, like I will cry, very heavy. And it was very important. Then I found a solution. Um, Going to my Tibetan teacher, and I asked him, okay, I told him, I have to pass you a request with which I'm very uneasy. In this and that context, my master asked me this, then you do whatever you want. I pass it to you. No, I also don't know what is the direction, he said. Then he made it more simple and I brought it back. But this process for me was very important because I saw how the suffering that I had in that process was not of asking that to my teacher, but somehow to have uh, had momentarily collapsed the idealized image of my master because he asked me something and he had a conduct that for me, according to me, was wrong because and so my tendency was that okay, because that doesn't work, everything else collapses. And because of this, I made my own path of seeing and remembering that one thing doesn't take away the other, first of all. And then, secondly, what goes through his mind, what is his intention, what is the why and the how he does it, I don't know. The only thing that I know is that if I was asking that thing, then I wouldn't feel at ease making such a request. And the moment that I was able to make peace again with myself and with him inside of myself, that's saved me a lot for many other occasions afterwards. Because the more we are close to someone, whoever is this person, the more we will find defects, the more we will see things that according to us are not fine, the more we will feel betrayed for this reason or the other. This is part of life towards anyone. And when we are able to, how can we say, impose on the other person the idealized image that we have of the other person, that saves us from many things, many conflicts. So I relate with the qualities and I don't try to have the constant fact of double checking. But are you really a Buddha? Look, there is that defect. How is your hair? It doesn't look like a Buddha. The point is relating with the qualities, because then there is another important aspect that is quoted in the Lam Rim, because the more trust I have qualities, the more I receive that part. When someone has faith in us, we give everything that we can give. So the more we have faith, the more we open to be able to receive the blessings, the more we're able to receive a sane guidance and correct guidance. And here I open and close a quick parenthesis. The real danger of this is when the previous lesson hasn't been completed in the right way, that is choosing correctly the spiritual guide. So if I rely upon someone that actually doesn't have all the papers, so to speak, so it doesn't have the characteristics of which we talked about, doesn't have a good morality, doesn't have a good knowledge of the teachings, or has a good knowledge of the teachings but doesn't put them in practice, here there is the possibility of at a certain point of getting into conflict. What to do in these cases, because it can happen? First of all, maintain always gratitude for what we receive. If it would ever happen that we are close to someone on which we rely, and then some conflicts are created, and then we are not able to rely anymore, then we can say, okay, I cannot rely upon this person anymore in this moment. I thank for everything I have received, and at the same time maybe there is someone else that can guide me, but I don't get into the process of putting myself against, of criticizing. The danger is when I rely upon someone, and then for any reason, whatever it is, then I feel like I cannot rely upon that person anymore because maybe that person doesn't have the characteristics and doesn't manifest them in a way that I'm able to perceive them. I feel betrayed, manipulated, many things that can happen. At that point, the key is, okay, this relationship doesn't work anymore. I need to find others that can cover this role. You did it until now. For what I've received, I feel gratitude. The things that don't work, I create some distance with. That's it. Because since the moment where I criticize, put myself against, then I lose the trust in the role, in the guru in general. And then, after this has happened, to rely upon someone else becomes extremely difficult. Because our tendency is projecting the fear of the first on the second. You can just see that in relationships, like couple relationships. When a relationship ends badly before getting into another one, does one projects the fears of the previous one on the next one? Yes. And you see that also when it's not there. And so it's important to remain in that state where there is gratitude for what I've received, and what doesn't work for myself, then I create distance with, without getting in the process of criticism and so on. For me, fortunately, this has never happened with anyone, any of my gurus. I've always been very selective. But on the other hand, it has happened with some people that have given me a lot, and then they had some conducts for which I've suffered a lot. And then what has helped me a lot was the process of going through, okay, I have a lot of gratitude for what you have given me, thank you, but I take distance from what you've done. One thing it was one thing, and another thing is another thing. It's not that because you have given me a lot that I have to continue living a situation that is hurting me, or because there is a situation that is hurting me, that everything you have given me was fake and it's not worth anything, and so to put these two things together. If I have towards someone that is covering the role of a spiritual guide, I have a strong conflict towards that person. Okay, I cannot relate properly in this moment, I cannot see the qualities and so on. For me, it's not working. Then I take some distance. I don't break the relationship. Once the relationship is broken, that I go against it and I put myself in opposition to that person. And even worse, when I put myself in opposition to the guru as a role to recreate that kind of role of trust is extremely difficult. And this is the part of the teachings that is called the disadvantages of not relying on a spiritual guide, but also of breaking the relationship and relying badly, in the wrong way. Unfortunately, I've already seen this happening, and what is said in the text of Lam Rim, look, things will go badly, we'll get bad diseases, there is a thing that is quite scary, and unfortunately, in my life, I have had the occasion of seeing people that broke in a bad way the relationship with the spiritual guide, and from that moment on, things went worse and worse. And it's not something to scare, but it's the fact that if there is someone helping me, has given me a lot, the non-gratitude, the anger towards that person activates a part of us that is very unhealthy. Let's think about the couple relationship that maybe is closer to many. When a relationship ends badly and one loses the trust towards the other, then that goes in many things in life. So when there is a role that is fundamental for us, like a role of someone loving us, a role of faith, of trust, then and I break the relationship, then I lose the trust, and that creates a lot of negative effects after that. So for that, the importance of really looking well before relying upon someone, and once I've relied upon someone, working on how to relate. So I relate internally with the qualities, and if there is something that is not working, I can momentarily take the distance. I say momentarily because it's not something that one closes forever. No, okay, this is not working, I take some distance. Yes, maybe the distance remains forever, maybe it changes. But I don't go towards breaking. That is important. And I repeat once again what I said yesterday. We shouldn't rely on someone because that person has a title, is dressed in a certain way, is called in a certain way, and so on. There are lamas and lamas. Me, in my life, I've seen people covering roles, spiritual, religious roles, where I've said, me personally, I will never rely upon that person because I'm not able to find this. So here I'm not like pointing the finger at anyone, but I'm sharing with you, as I said before, my way of going about it. That is, before of anything else, we need to check well, we need to make experience, we need to see. When someone comes to me and says, look Lama, I've met you many years ago, I had moments of distrust, and now actually I feel like some more trust, and I said, how beautiful. And not that there is trust now, but there was like a sincere journey, and it was not like just something just like that, just because like one is sitting on a throne and covering a role. The throne where I'm sitting now actually is not about my persona, it's about the role that I'm covering and what I'm transmitting. And so, taking the text again quickly, to train in faith, it seems that, was clear enough. Inside of this, let's go quickly through it. The first two reasons, where it says, why should you see the Guru as a Buddha? Because it brings us a lot of benefits and doesn't hurt us, and because we are able to do it. This is very much the system of dialectic. So the reason for which one should see the Guru as a Buddha, it's not whether the Guru is the Buddha or not, but because it's good for me, it's not bad for me, and because I'm able to do it. And then we're constantly looking for an objective reality. So then we say, but is it or not a Buddha? That's not the point. The point is the way that I interact brings me to transform myself in a way or another. That is the important thing. Here it says the reasons of the why. Should we see the Guru as the Buddha? One is because Buddha Shakyamuni himself made various forecasts where he said, okay, the Buddha will manifest in the forms of spiritual guides. Different texts, this is quoted. Then the Guru is who realizes the action of all Buddhas, what we said before. The Buddhas want to help the beings in many different ways. So not only the Guru, many different ways where it can be manifested. But what comes closest to me is actually my Gurus. The Guru manifested in different forms. The third reason that is given is that even at the times of today, the Buddhas are manifested. So it's not that now we are in degenerated times and so they're not there. In any time, this is there. And the fourth reason is I cannot trust my perception. I do not have the capacity, by all means, to understanding who do I have in front of me. And this is for anything. When we see someone, there is this passage of a Sutra of Buddha, a being, to judge the other being is nothing else but a cause of degeneration for oneself. When we are in front of the other, do we have means to really understand who the other is? What is thinking, feeling, what is inside of that being? No, the only thing that we have is what in Tibetan is called namparriche. That means we have manifestations through which we can try to understand. I can see the facial expression, the energy that the other is emanating, the way of behavior, and on the basis of these external aspects we have some kind of hints to judge what's in the inside. But by all means we don't have the means to do that. So we really cannot know who we have in front, whether it's an evolved, a spiritually evolved being or not. We don't really have the means to do that. So we really cannot trust our perception for a, so to speak, objective comprehension of reality. As we said before, and unfortunately I've seen this happening, for example, someone that constantly in life had an attitude of getting angry with someone. There would always be like a person in any moment of his life that was the cause of his unhappiness. He did this with his parents, with the partner, he did this with the friends, and eventually he did this also with the guru. Because what does this mean? I see the other through myself, and my internal dynamics, I project them constantly. And also on this we should be careful. My own perception is not pure. My perception is inevitably polluted by my fears, my traumas, my dynamics, and so on. So if I constantly feel abandoned in life, I can tell you that you will feel abandoned by the guru. I hope not, but very, very likely this will happen. So this is normal. For this, in seeing the guru, we should remember that but this also happens with anyone. We see the other through our filters. We don't have an objective perception of reality and also of beings, of people.
Il prossimo parte che adesso lo sfioro velocemente.
The next part that I would just touch briefly is the part that with this we conclude the part of training in faith, and it's a part that I repeat is very important because as we have said in the beginning, if I have trust, I believe in the existence of the role of the guru, I understand what are his functions, what are the qualities that are there. At this point, naturally, and I believe that I can have a guru, I can relate, and I can trust, I can rely upon. When I have this faith, this trust, this brings me to that inner desire. I want the guru. Remembering that there is the search of our spiritual guide, this doesn't happen in finding the perfect being. Because if we go in the search of the perfect being, at least me, I have never found it, for this very last aspect that we have talked about. So what happens is that we should try to search one or more people that can cover that role of trust, of love, of guidance, and so on, and to have faith in the guru. Then, once we have faith, naturally we will put effort to get closer, to get to know, to maintain this relationship, to do everything that comes as a consequence, practice Dharma and so on. And then this faith is manifested in three types of faith. There is the faith that is the faith where I believe in something but I don't have a direct experience. They have told me, I've seen, I believe. The second type of faith is when there is a direct experience. I felt it, I have experienced it, it's there. So for example, with Lama Rinpoche, for many years I've had the experience of checking and seeing one time after the other that I could trust, and one time after the other that he had a deeper vision of mine. And it's not that along this path of many years together there was not one moment that was difficult or something that I didn't understand or where I had a hard time to understand or accept. There were these moments. But the strength is really in the fact that, first of all, I relate with everything that I receive. Then what I don't understand, I put it in the category of waiting list. Sooner or later, maybe I can understand them. Some aspects with time I could understand them, some others not. But this doesn't take away the love, the gratitude, the faith, and the trust. And so, to have faith in the Guru. And so it's not idealizing a person, but is allowing oneself to have that role present in one's own life, to have those that we can become inseparable with. The process of training oneself in faith is not that it's something you just do once. You repeat it, you go back to it. It's like a spiral where you pass through the same point many times and then bit by bit you go upwards, but it's something where you have to train yourself. It's not something you just do once. Then what we will see tomorrow is the part that is about training in gratitude. That is the other part that goes together with it. This afternoon we will have Sherab Rinpoche giving the initiation of Vajrayogini. Vajrayogini is difficult to say what it is, but it's a deity, it's a Buddha, it's a system, it's a practice of meditation. It's many things together. It's one of the most important practices in our tradition, in which also Sherab Rinpoche has a great experience, so he has all the qualities to transmit this initiation. An initiation is what opens the door to do that practice. It's what introduces one to a practice. And then how one maintains the relationship or not, then it depends on us. The practice of Vajrayogini has many characteristics, but one of these is to use the aspect of desire and to use the desire as a tool that helps us to grow spiritually. So also for this is said that the practices that has these special characteristics, the times that we live in, times of degeneration, become stronger because we live in a time where there is more and more desire. Desire is very much nourished, is very strong, the part of desire. So because that aspect is very strong, if I'm able to direct it in a different way, then I have a further push. So because of this is a practice that has been maintained also in a secret way for a long time. Also now, in order for one to do a practice, one has to receive the initiation and the teachings. And before that, it is required actually to have received the teachings of the common path, which is the Lam Rim. So there is also a coherence between what we are doing here in the morning and the afternoon. But it's an opportunity that we all have, so I invite you to take this opportunity. Then who wants to go deeper in the practice, there are many ways to do it. Now we will make the dedications. These days, as I said yesterday, these days are quite full. And so, me, myself, after having finished this, I have another appointment, and they are already waiting for me, because also with Sharon Rinpoche himself, I need to be able to go through some things, take care of some things. And so I will leave tomorrow after the teachings, the moment to talk with each other, to receive everyone. But in this moment now, we make the dedications, and then I go there, because then we have that half an hour together, because then after that he has to do the preparation for the initiation, and at 3 we start. So also we experience how it usually happens. We are basically the only center that I know that at the end of the teachings you all go talk with the Lama. I've never seen it anywhere, at least with my teachers. This has never happened. So this is okay. So at least one knows how it is basically anywhere. I would say the majority of other masters, Lamas teachings, where once the teachings are given, then it's finished. This is the way the Lama Ganchen transmitted it, where one has the possibility of cultivating the relationship, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's not always possible.
Rowe Munsel Takto Negur Che Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Kuyan Delek Shin Ninsen Takto Delek Pe Kuncho Sumke Chinge Lobo Kuncho Sumke Ngodrubatsol Kuncho Sumke Trashisho Al-Alba
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Ripetete dopo di me.
Repeat after me.
Che lam tudro, lam la parce, mion warsho. Possa la mente
May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences.
Oma hun tembala me sangye rinpoche, kyobala me tamcho rinpoche, drembala me gendo rim, kyamne kuncho sumla chopa. Buon appetito e ci vediamo alle 3.